Okay, welcome to the IIBA Tampa Bay, Florida chapter. This is our study group for January, what is today, the 4th of 2024. This is our 101st class for our series here at Tampa Bay, and Happy New Year. Our mission here is to bridge the gap between industry leaders and business analysts by building partnerships with professionals, educators, and employers so that we may empower, instruct, and engage the BA community. Our community is worldwide. Some of you have been following us and joining us here at our Thursday night study group. Others are joining by video recording afterwards. Either way, welcome. We are glad you're here, and we're here for you. We have a variety of ways for you to reach us. Again, this is our Thursday night study group from 7 to 8 p.m. Eastern Time. We have LinkedIn study groups. We have our meetups. Several of you have found us via Meetup. This is our Zoom online. Incidentally, this address does not change. So if you ever need it, it's the same address every single time. We have study group materials here on our Google Drive, and we have meeting recordings on YouTube, as well as an IIBA site. The meeting recordings on YouTube have been cataloged by Bob, and I'll show you his website in just a minute. Well, let me just go ahead and show you his website now. Bob's website, if you go here to Tampa IIBA study group, he has a list of every single topic we covered, and if you click on the link, it will jump to that part in the recording. So if you say use cases and scenarios, you want to see what we talked about, it's right here. It's a phenomenal piece of work, and we are deeply indebted to him. Watermark Learning has been a constant supporter for us since we began. They have given us a discount code of 20%. So if you want to use the discount code Tampa with a space 21, it will give you 20% off of any of their products. They have not only business analysis, but a couple of other topics. And the practice study questions, the test questions that we use are from Watermark Learning. Our leadership is Cliff and Yulia and Bob and myself, as well as we've got a couple of other folks that have said that they want to come on board as board members. So if you want to reach out to any of us, we're here on LinkedIn. My name is Thea Soren. I'm the Vice President of Career and Professional Development for the chapter. It is my job to help you find out the information that you seek. So if you need something, if you need a resume reviewed, if you need mentorship, if you need to learn something, reach out to me. As I said, we have a few people that have said that they're interested in being board members. We're going to be contacting them in the next 2 weeks. If you are interested in being a board member, if you would reach out to me, I'd be glad to include you on that list. Being a board member doesn't require a great deal from you, but it gives you some experience and some exposure that you might not have otherwise. So I ask you to consider it. We like to celebrate our wins, and I'm sorry, study group advisors. Let me start here. For you to get credit for this hour of study group, we have to have CBAP, people that have earned their CBAP certification. And those people are here with us today. It's Bob Churchill and Yulia. They are both here in my screen on the upper right. They're here to let us know if we're making a mistake, but also give us their expertise. And we're very proud that they have joined us and they're part of our organization. As I was saying, we like to celebrate our wins. We have quite a number of people that have used our certification test questions, our study groups, our things like that to practice, and then they went on to earn their certifications. So if you're one of those people, reach out so I can put you on the list. It is encouraging to us. As you know, we don't charge for these study groups. We're doing this for you, but this is our encouragement to keep going. We have a couple of different certifications that we are working on. These 3 up here are the ones that we work on in our study group. The ECBA for beginning, CCBA for mid, and CBAP for advanced, or at least 5 years of experience. If you're interested in these, this is what we're working on. These other certifications are quite interesting, but I do encourage you to get to this level before you work on these. They're kind of designed that way. It doesn't mean for everybody, but most people find that working on these before they get to this level is challenging. Tonight, we're going to be interviewing Cliff Gray. Cliff has been the president of our organization since before I began, and he is not only the president, he is a data guru who does some really cool stuff, and we're going to learn more about that. He does some business analysis, but he also does some data organization and transformation, uh, and moving from one application to another. We're going to learn more about that tonight. Next week, we're going to talk to Rohit. Rohit is going to do a more basic level of data that we as business analysts can do ourselves. He's going to talk about if you bring a data set into Excel, what you need to do to it, to normalize it, to verify its quality, and then he's going to show us how to make a really easy dashboard using Excel. So if the data changes, the dashboard changes. It's something that we haven't been able to do without getting into something like Tableau or Power BI before. He just has an easy way to do it, and I think it's something we're going to benefit from. The following week, we're going to talk to Kathy Gaston. Kathy is a business architect with Blue Cross Blue Shield that covers 5 different states, and her ability as a business architect is stunning to me. I've been working with her for almost 2 full weeks now, and I said, Kathy, we need to know more. Back in August 22nd of last year, we had a business architect come in and kind of give us high-level conceptual view. Kathy's going to give us more of a concept down to actual strategy and steps that we can do, because many business analysts can move up into a business architect position if you understand the theories and the practices. So with no further ado, I'm going to go back to interviewing for Cliff. And Cliff, Cliff, why don't we just let you take over the screen? Well, you don't have a presentation, so why don't we just talk to you about what you do? I understand you've been with your company 7 years, but were you doing the same type of job prior to that?
Kind of. I work with the Microsoft stack. I work for a Microsoft partner. We're one of the top 1% partners in the world. We have over 100,000 employees. Sometimes I'm working directly for Microsoft. Sometimes I'm working for a Microsoft implementation. A lot of times when a company comes to Microsoft and wants to get onto their platform, Microsoft doesn't do the work. They give it to a partner that does all the work, and then they support their platform in the back end. So that's where partner relationships usually come in. Amazon has a similar structure, Oracle, everybody else, but that's the Microsoft platform. We were kind of going to go ad hoc tonight, so I was going to kind of let some of you guys drive this as to what you want to do. Microsoft's platform, it's known as Azure. I'm assuming, well, does anybody here ever work with Azure?
Yes.
Okay. So Azure is their full-scale platform. It includes everything. We have Synapses, we've got Flow, we've got, well, Synapses and Flow are what I deal with. You got the Power Platform, and the big buzzword lately is Microsoft Copilot. Copilot is Microsoft's AI system, and we were actually having a little conversation about this a little while ago, where if you're familiar with Microsoft Power Platform, you can actually build your own apps, and it sits in the Microsoft environment. You can control security and those kinds of things, but you're using their cloud platform. And now they have Microsoft Copilot with the Power Platform. So you can do a lot of these natural language type commands. So in the old days, you used to have to have all kinds of BA meetings, come up with fields, come up with forms, and those kinds of wonderful things that a lot of BAs spend an awful lot of time doing. Now you can do that with Copilot. It's pretty cool. You can type in some type in commands that said, create an app that keeps track of expenses. And it will give you a basic platform for that app, give you fields, suggestions, build all those fields in the back end, create forms for you, and you can actually deal with it in real time language. So you could say, oh, well, no, this field needs to be a date field instead of a number field, or create this field this way. And you're actually talking with the Copilot rather than trying to build all this stuff in the back end. Not that it's difficult, it's just makes this platform available to a lot of people where it normally wasn't. And I saw a demo the other day where Copilot is also working with Power BI. If any of you guys have worked with Power BI, that's where a lot of the BAs get really excited. But with Power BI, it can get very intricate. I want a bar graph. I want it this color. I want these fields, and you have to know where to grab them and everything else. With Copilot, you're going to be able to type in a lot of things. You'll be able to say, give me a bar chart, make this field orange, make this field red, highlight this, and you're actually typing that in, and it's doing it for you.
That's exciting.
That's exciting and scary. So
Hey, is it possible to do a demo tonight?
No, I don't have. I have access to an Azure platform. The problem is it's a client, and I can't expose that kind of stuff. I really need to get one. I just haven't done it. A platform where a testing environment. We just don't have those, unfortunately, laying around because
Okay.
we deal with clients and client data. So I can't
a
expose
mission
that.
for all of y'all, if y'all know any Microsoft salespeople that will come on and do a demo, invite them to contact me.
I might be able to do that. I might be able to arrange that because I know our sales staff. It's just I don't deal with the sales all that much and more implementation.
Well, we
But,
definitely don't want to expose client data or
oh,
proprietary
no.
data. Okay.
And
So
that's a whole nother thing we could talk about on data is the old days of doing a lot of things and downloading to your computer and opening an Excel and manipulating and all those things. That has gone away. At least it's gone away from our company, but it is not recommended anymore. We don't do any of that stuff anymore. We do everything in the cloud where it's secure. It's not on anyone's machine. It's not on anybody's thumb drive or those. Actually, our laptops now won't even allow you to do that kind of work on a local machine. So the data platform has changed a lot as far as that kind of stuff goes.
Okay. So I'm going to go back to what you said at the very beginning. You were talking about working with Azure. Can you explain basically what does Azure do? What is Azure? So the people that have not worked with it can have some understanding.
Okay. Let's start with the cloud.
Okay.
Because it's one definition that most people don't understand, or at least a lot of the C-suite executives that we deal with. Everybody's buzzword is I want to put stuff in the cloud without understanding what the cloud actually is.
Okay.
And if you had told me 20 years ago that I would get paid to put stuff on somebody else's network, I would have told you you're crazy. But this is, you're using Microsoft's platform, or, there's other providers out there, but I speak Microsoft. And Microsoft's Azure platform. So think of it as they have a bunch of servers, a bunch of hard drives, and you're connecting via the internet. And you have your own little part of that. And that's where you're doing your work, whether it be Dynamics, Office 365, Dynamics F&O. The new thing is data lake now for structured and unstructured data, and a tool called Synapse to be able to query that type of data. It used to be in the old days that we would put a lot of data in databases. field structure. Bob could tell you about all that. You have to write a lot of SQL commands and get all this data out. Now, what we're doing is we're putting things in what we call data lake or a lake house. They keep on changing the name.
Yes.
Where we put where we might have 10 CSV files, and then over on the other side a SQL database, and over here an Excel file. And this allows you to actually join all that data and query it all together in one platform, one place, all together at one time. As long as you've got fields that link them all together. We can actually talk about that too. But if you want to get into data, we could talk about primary keys and those kinds of fields. But the Synapse is where I've been playing probably for the last couple of months, and it's just it does a lot of things that we couldn't do before, and it's all scalable. And what I mean by that is if you have a data structure with 500 million records in it, it's scalable to the point where you can actually query all that and call up 20 Microsoft machines in the back end to actually help you go through it. It's not like the old days where you had your own little machine with SQL on it, and you could push the limits of that machine as far as you could, but you couldn't bring in other machines to help you out with that. That's one of the advantages with the cloud per se, is it's all scalable. So
Okay.
I'm rambling, so
it's okay. We got some questions. Jim, you said, I'm interested in DevOps and understanding how it might integrate with other apps like ScopeMaster or HPALM.
Yeah,
okay.
Just a little bit more. We've got a couple of platforms that we're working with, and we haven't kind of decided as a standard for our group as to which one we're going to use for recording, creating, eliciting requirements, and moving those into a test environment where we can then write tests that map to those requirements. And some of the things we're looking at are using Azure DevOps to capture requirements. And I've looked at some other solutions. We use ALM for mapping our functional requirements to our test cases. And so we want something that's kind of the everything. ScopeMaster will do AI on requirements. It will check to see if your requirements are in conflict with one another. Some really cool stuff that it will do, but I don't know what integrates with Azure DevOps or how it works.
Well, to me, Azure DevOps is kind of like a Jira on steroids. One of the bigger platforms that I deal with is what they call CE, Customer Engagement, which is Microsoft Dynamics. That's their CRM system. That's where you keep track of your accounts, contacts, sales orders, opportunities, leads, etc. So full board CRM system. So you might have a test environment, a dev environment, production environment. You can actually integrate DevOps to the point where, yes, you can write all your requirements. You can write all your, I forget some of these BA terms. But you can write all your requirements just like Jira, and your testing and whether it passed, and you can hand it to your testing environment that they give you a pass or not. But you can also use it to move all the customizations. So as you develop, dev, as you build fields and new functionality and back-end processes, you can take those customizations and use DevOps to the point where it's almost like one mouse click. So you can export all of those things out of one environment, put it in test. Once it passes in test, one mouse click, it moves everything from test over to prod. you can have 10 other environments in there too, but DevOps will do a lot of that stuff for you. You have to build it, but it'll flow from one to the other. In the old days, doing that kind of stuff was kind of a pain in a lot of back-end work because you had to export it, take all these customizations and export them out into like a zip file, import them into your next environment. And it just opened up a lot of bad possibilities where
Are you talking
mistakes
about
could be
code
made.
migration? Sorry, Cliff, are you talking
Yeah,
about
code
about
customizations would be like a code migration. So all your backend flows for your CRM system, the fields, the forms, and those kinds of things, that's all part of your customizations. And you can do different customization profiles. So you can have just like you can with code. You can have one customization set that says, okay, well, this is just for sales. And we are only going to deal with the sales entities and modules and fields. So, and then you can move that from one environment to the other, all with DevOps. But I'm not dissing on Jira because we do have some clients that use Jira, but we also have some clients, especially like government or healthcare, where Jira becomes a problem because a lot of people don't know Jira is actually a China company. It's China Cloud, and all the data is there. And that can become an issue for some clients. I'm not saying it's an issue with Jira at all, but it's one of the reasons why we have some people that go with other platforms rather than Jira. But Azure DevOps gives you everything Jira does and plus more. It integrates with Dynamics, integrates with Dynamics F&O, and Dynamics CRM. And if I'm throwing out terms that you guys don't know, please ask, because
You're going to have
sometimes
to talk about those different dynamics.
Okay. Dynamics is their business platform, the business applications platform. It's kind of like we had talked about Microsoft Power Platform where you could write your own apps in their structure. Dynamics and F&O is a Power Platform app, but it's Dynamics. They already wrote it, and it's for Dynamics. CRM is for customer engagement. F&O is for your backend. So that's your finance and operations, accounts payable, accounts receivable, employee maintenance, payroll, those kinds of things. We call it F&O, finance and operations, and we call CRM or CE, customer engagement, is the other big platform. So those are the two main platforms that Microsoft Dynamics has. And then, of course, they have Office. Pretty much everybody knows Office. Your Word, Excel, PowerPoint, Access, those kinds of things.
Right. Okay, let's see. Next question. How many years can natural language replace SQL statements for a data query?
It's close. It's
Is it
really
close?
close.
Yeah.
It's close. Yes. I to this day, and I don't write SQL every day. That's the big problem. And if you don't do it daily, sometimes you forget, I have to go back and it's like, oh, is this a left join, a right join, a middle join? Because sometimes you'll join tables and you'll come up with all this extra data that you weren't expecting. And it's like, why? And then you look at it. So Copilot being able to assist with that, I see that coming very soon. Because like I said, you see it with the Power Platform. I don't think it's there with Synapse yet. And I throw around Synapse. Synapse is an environment that actually includes things like the data lake, Dynamics, etc. And you put it all in one place, and then you can use Synapse to query it. And actually, I think they just changed the name of it. If you deal with Microsoft, I swear they let their marketing people go a little wild too much, because they'll take the same thing, add a feature to it, and rename it, and it drives us nuts. But they do that a lot. Synapse is the tool, and this is the other thing too, is whenever you query data via a report or anything like that, most of the time you're dealing with a copy of that data. So you add a whole new extra layer to the platform. So you've got to have a place to dump all this data. So let's say you're getting data from your CRM system, from your F&O system. You might have SAP. You might have Azure Web Services. You know, most companies, big companies, don't have everything in one platform. That's the biggest problem we deal with. Right there, I mean, big companies, and we've got some even small companies that have let their business processes run wild. So they'll have 10 different departments that are allowed to go out and buy 10 different apps to do the same thing across those platforms, and they don't force it to consolidate. And then they want somebody to be able to write a report that joins all the data from all those 10 apps and give them some insights. So that's some of the fun stuff you get to deal with. As the tools get better, especially things like Power BI connects to, I think the last time I checked, it almost had 500 built-in connections to it to connect to anything. As long as you have the credentials, it can connect to AWS, it can connect to, just anything. Bring in that data and then allow you to play with it. It's pretty incredible. Back in the day when I first started, everybody's big push was to try and get everything into one platform.
Mm-hmm.
Now now it's to the point where it's like, that's not so much of a priority anymore. Now that you have tools that can connect to 20 different platforms and join the data. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. It's just an evolution thing.
Right. Cliff, Bob has a question. Can you talk about your work in terms of ETL and the reasons this work is necessary? First, define ETL for us.
Extract, transfer, and load. There's also, what the hell's the other one, Bob? There's extract, transfer, and load, but there's also like they switch.
Reverse.
Transfer or
Yeah.
transform and load.
Yeah, they reverse the order sometimes. We deal a lot with this per se with, if you're new to Dynamics, let's say you were on Salesforce and now you want to go over to Dynamics. So now we have to export all that data out of Salesforce and move it over to Dynamics. So we have to build the fields. We have to match, or God forbid, you already have a Dynamics environment and a Salesforce environment, and you've got to take the Salesforce data and force it into your Dynamics environment. And that's where the ETL stuff comes into play. Like you might have a pick list, and a pick list is like a drop down. You get it onto a website, you get a drop down, you have 5 options. Well, those 5 options aren't always the same in your 2 different systems. So now you have to run lines across and transform them when you bring this data over. This is this is important when you do a lot of reports, because your pick list might have these 5 values, but it has 5 values over in this other system that kind of mean the same thing, but they're not the exact same thing. So when you put them together, it looks like 10 things instead of 5 things. So you have to transform them and join them together. That's where it gets very ugly and messy. When you do migrations, that's the nice thing is you're bringing it over from one system, you're standardizing it and putting it into another system, and then it goes away.
Right. What questions do we have from y'all about what Cliff does? So Cliff, what are some of the hazards that you're dealing with or pain
Security.
points? Security?
Yeah, you see a lot of times IBM's big thing is cloud versus on premise and making those work together.
Mhm.
Those can start getting very ugly because now you've got portals between your online data and your on-prem data. So the security between the two, those kinds of things. But I don't know how I should know how to answer that question.
It's
Nor
okay. We've got
I
more
think we call it
questions.
yeah, no, I think we call it like normalizing the data.
Mhm.
This is very standard in like a data warehouse because you start, like I said, getting information from all these different systems into one place, the data warehouse. But then you've got to match those things across when you write your reports.
Mhm.
So yeah, we're kind of getting away from the data warehouse. I don't know if we're going to totally be able to do that because with, like I said, with Power BI, if you can connect to 10 different systems, you don't necessarily have to have all those 10 different systems export all their data into a data warehouse. Data warehouse was kind of like a in the middle platform that you could put all that data into, and then you use that to query your data. You very rarely query live data.
Right.
So, because you don't want to slow down your systems. That's one reason, plus security, of course. But you don't want a bunch of people writing reports hitting your CRM system, and God forbid they do something crazy and bring your CRM system to a crawl while you got 100 people trying to access it, put in leads and opportunities, those kinds of things. So
Mhm.
a lot of the data you use for your reporting and analysis and everything else is copied. So that brings a whole new process into, you got to come up with ways to copy it into those areas. That's another big pain point we do have now that you mention it is we have some clients that have to have their data every 15 minutes refreshed. And sometimes the difference between refreshing it every 15 minutes and refreshing it once a day or twice a day can be tens of thousands of dollars a day
Wow.
because you're running these processes constantly. And, if you have a CRM system with half a terabyte of data and you're constantly querying that to make a copy of it every 15 minutes, just so that you can query it. We've got some clients like, oh, well, I want to be able to query my sales, my pipeline,
Mhm.
and I want to see, and I hate this word, real-time data. There is no such thing as real-time data. There's always a lag time, and that's when that 15 minutes comes into play, 30 minutes comes into play, is
Mhm.
it's always a copy of your data. How old the data can you deal with? It's a conversation we have. It's like, oh, okay, you can have it every 15 minutes. Are you willing to spend thousands of dollars every day just to make that report? Or if I cut that price down to a tenth and you're dealing with data that's a couple hours old, can you tolerate that?
Right. So
We,
as business analysts, as we write the requirements for this, we use the phrase near real time. And that's like, within the last 5 minutes or something like that. Um, so what we really need to do is ask what the cost is for the different time limits as we update the data.
and I'll be honest with you, we actually struggle with this, and we have Microsoft people on these conversations a lot of the time, and they even struggle with it because you can write something, and like I said, because it's scalable, we're bringing all this data from one place over to the other, and you don't always know. You could be scaling up 20 computers in the back end to bring over all this data and do all this processing for you. And if you tie up those kinds, you're paying for those resources. So if you're tying up all these extra resources, you could be getting a bill at the end of the month that'll throw you off. We actually, one of the projects I was on, in their QA, we actually wrote what's called an Azure data function. So it copied a lot of the data out of their system, would process it, and then re-import it. Because the problem is they would do a lot of territory reassignments. So inside like CRM, they would change a territory, and that could change the owner or the sales rep for 10,000 accounts. Well, a real-time flow trying to make a change to 10,000 accounts doesn't really work that way. So this is another thing with a lot of databases is you take the data out, you process it somewhere else, and then you bring it back in. But that's one thing that we got off on. And when they were QAing that part, they were running that process instead of once a day or twice a day, they were running it every hour. They would make a change in the system, run the process to test it, make sure that the change got brought back. And before they knew it, they ran through their entire budget for the year in 1 month.
Oh my. So things for us to be aware of as BAs
Yeah.
working with testing.
So it wasn't that it was out of budget going forward, because in its normal runtime, it would have been okay. But during the testing process, they were testing it so often and testing every little scenario. They didn't allocate, for that. We didn't either. We didn't realize what they were doing when they were testing. It's like, oh, you just ran your full monthly budget in a couple of days because you ran this flow 30 times testing it, where it would normally run 30 times a month. So
I don't see a way
those
around it though. You have to test.
Oh yes, and it was a learning curve for us, because this was back when Azure Data Factory was something new that we were just using for this kind of functionality. So this was kind of like a first time with the client, and before we knew it, it's like, oh, wait a second. Why are we getting this big old bill? And that's one of the downsides with the cloud too, is, it's not your machine. So if you make a mistake, that's my biggest fear sometimes with some of this stuff is if you make a mistake, you can run up a heck of a bill.
Okay. Give us a definition for normalizing data and conditioning data, and when do you use those?
Again, that's a lot to me in my area. That's more for the reporting and those kinds of things, getting multiple systems data to work together. So so you want to normalize, like I was saying, that pick list. So you might have a pick list with 5 values, and they're different in 3 different systems, but you're doing reporting and combining the data from all those 3 different systems. So you have to normalize it. We call it normalize, we standard. There's a lot of different words we use for that. Yeah,
for instance, if I'm using JAN for January in one system and I'm using 01 in another system, we need to make them agree somehow.
Correct. And you have to have something transform it so that when you use your Power BI to put that data together, it knows that 01 is the same as January, and et cetera. So yeah, we dates will kill you. Pick list are where we see a lot of that.
That specific example is a form of making things consistent. Normalization in terms of database technology is a very specific thing, which has to do with the structure of the data and how bits of it and different tables and columns relate to each other.
Okay.
Yeah, because we didn't even hit on that. Sometimes, let's say not a pick list, but let's say one system stores the date in a text field, which is like totally not standard.
Right.
It might have one that kills you is like January 1st of 2000. So one system might store it 1/1/2000. Another system might store it 01/01/2000. Or God forbid, back in the 90s, you'd have 1100. You wouldn't have the 4 digits for the
Right.
that got us in a lot of trouble back in the day. So those are the fun things that you get to deal with on that. Let me see here. I'm trying to read some of these stats myself. I got too many screens here. We are all being encouraged. Our company is actually encouraging us with Copilot. Like I said, I love the name for it. I think Microsoft named it appropriately. It's a Copilot. It works with you. It checks what you're doing while you're doing it. But this, everybody thinks AI and they think Terminator type stuff, and we're just not there yet. Hopefully, we're not going to be there. But
How do you use Copilot if you have proprietary information and you're not supposed to put proprietary information or confidential information into Copilot?
oh, you know what? That's a good question. Copilot works with the data set that you give it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of the problems that people don't realize with like ChatGPT. When you sign on to ChatGPT, everything you're typing in goes into their centralized database
Mm-hmm.
and is used for them to move forward, which is fine. But don't take a data set that you have from a client, stick it in the ChatGPT and try and get inferences off of it, because you've now just exposed that client's data.
Right.
One of the advantages with Copilot is you're, and I've always said this when it comes to AI or anything like that, it really depends. It depends so much on the data set you're giving. How many times has ChatGPT been turned on to the internet and you type something in it and you start getting all the skews about all the crap that's on the internet? So it's really it's all about the data set, and that's one of the advantages. When you're dealing with Microsoft Copilot, you're usually looking at a client's data. You're looking at your data. You're not looking at the internet per se, and trying to get inferences. So it actually learns from your data, from your local data.
So is it safe to use proprietary or confidential data in Copilot?
Yes, because it's only you're setting up Copilot. Copilot is not like the like ChatGPT, where it's still building itself based off that. And actually, I think Copilot uses ChatGPT in the background, but again, Copilot is only looking at the data you point it to, and it's not exporting it anywhere, and it's not using it to build Microsoft's overall AI kind of system. It's only pointed at your data.
Tim,
And
did that answer your question?
Hold on, I want to add, right? Provided that you are using your corporate computer, because I purchased a new computer. Now I have the latest of everything. I'm looking at it right now. And now I have Copilot on my personal computer. But it's not enterprise license, so I cannot take my work data set and use my personal computer and upload it, for example. So use it if it's on your corporate network, your enterprise network. Right, Cliff?
correct.
Yeah.
Correct. And I haven't seen, honestly, I haven't played with, I know they rolled out Copilot for your desktop with Windows 11. I honestly haven't played with that yet. And I don't know what what the thing is with that. I'm thinking the Copilot on a desktop is more for like Q&A and help you do local things. I don't think it's building like a Chat GPT. I don't think it's building a corporate database, for
Okay.
all of Chat GPT to use. But I could be wrong there. I don't know.
More
When I
research
used
to be done.
the Copilot on my personal computer, I was asking random questions like for general knowledge. For example, what is Python or what is this? And it was providing me answers like a chat GPT, you know,
Okay.
But
So that is,
on my personal
The-
computer.
the instance you have running on your computer comes with the basic data set that gives you the basics. It won't have everything Microsoft has or Google has or whoever's running ChatGPT has, but it has something.
Hmm.
So,
and
and
honestly, it might just be a portal to Bing. To be honest with you, it's
yeah,
probably binging
be.
that and giving you the results, giving you the same results you would get with Bing.
Okay. Jim, did you get your question
Potentially,
answered?
that's essentially the same understanding I came to from our UW analyst who works with Microsoft on these things. That it really is kind of sources from Bing. And so unless we've got the sort of premium brand of it that looks at that's proprietary to our database, we're not supposed to put anything in there other than generic questions like how do you do an RFP or things that you might sort of Google, and it comes back in a very nice format. Yeah.
So I guess it would depend on the license, right? My company purchased a license for us for Copilot, and they did not tell us any restrictions like don't put this. They said okay, play, but if you, they told us one thing, if you want for Copilot to work, everything must be on the cloud. So it cannot look on a data which is saved on your desktop, for example.
Okay.
Yeah, but we are free to do whatever with Copilot because we have
typically
enterprise
the way
license.
typically the way large language models work is if you have a pile of data, they're basically just a fancy autocomplete based on the data you feed in. So if you have a giant pile of data you're trying to do something with, you can't really use it all for your application. Like you might take a third event as a seed to serve as the basic network and intelligence building. You'll verify it against another third event, and then you'll do whatever analysis you want to do against the last third. Just rule of thumb, ballpark kind of division. And it's a question of where the engine is actually running, where the CPU cycles are, and where all the data is stored. And if you're using a public engine like ChatGPT, everything, you should assume that whoever is running it has everything. Whereas if you're running the engine that's doing the calculations locally and using local data, that's the way you maintain privacy and security.
Okay. Cliff, do you want another question or do you have something else to tell us?
No, go for it. It's
Okay. One of my last positions, we worked in data governance, and the concept that if you have bad data, you're going to have bad results became so very apparent to me. Easy way to have bad data is require a field to be filled in, but don't require it to be filled in accurately. I got a lot of first
absolutely.
name, last name, fake phone number. I mean, you know, they had to put something in those fields, but they weren't governed and they weren't motivated. So we had bad data. And so trying to get those identified and cleared out was challenging. Another thing we discovered is whenever we looked at a field, we had to look at what percentage of completeness that field had. If the name on the account, we only had 60% of those fields filled in, we knew that that wasn't a reliable field to use. So we had to go find a different field from a different source. Do you have any
Yes,
tips or
actually, I'm
tricks?
gonna let's see if I can share my screen, because I also have the generic mapping document that I've shared in the past. How in the world do I share?
Go down to the bottom middle. It should say share
Oh,
screen.
there we go. Share screen, and then I just got to pick the right one.
And then tell it which screen. There you go.
Okay. So in the very basics, you can do a lot of
I
this
don't
in
see it yet.
Excel.
Do y'all see a screen?
I can see.
Okay, perfect. Keep going.
Okay. So this is just a basic Excel spreadsheet. So let's, and I've already cleared out all the data here, but this is like a field name. This is how many fields in this data or have data in this field. So this data set has 2,761
Mm-hmm.
before I cleared it. And then this would calculate how many fields had data in it. So these are the kinds of conversations that I'll use for a data migration. So let's say these are all the fields in this Salesforce entity. I believe this is accounts or something like that. So we start here and we say, okay, because how many people, and again, this gets right to your question, Thea, and how you get so much junk data, is when you migrate from one system to the other, how many times have you heard that says, people say, bring over everything? And I hate that. So we try and do something like this before we migrate any data, just so, and this is very eye-opening for a lot of the clients, is you tell them, hey, you know what, you got all these fields, and this is the field that or calculation I look at right here, and they'll fight you. Say like this field right here. This is a custom field for Salesforce, and out of those 2,761 records, only 8 had data. So 0.29%. So I'll force somebody in a meeting, and that's why I like to get in a lot of the BA type meetings, even though I'm a data person, and say, hey, you know what? You don't have any data in this field. Why are we going to bring over this field to the new system?
Mm-hmm.
And this will, sometimes this is where what Thea was talking about there is when you get these systems and you look at it, and not only is it full of garbage data, it's because it was brought over from this system and then they migrated to another system, and then you might be 5 migrations down the road to the point where people look at the field and they don't remember what it was there for. So we see an awful lot of that. This total conception is like, okay, well, when I migrate from this system to this system, I'm just going to create all these custom fields and bring over the full data set and not look at the data before they do it. That's one way to get around what you were talking about, Thea, is when you end up with a, hodgepodge there at the end. But this is also another thing. We use this for like pick lists. So pick lists from the source system to the target system, what the value is in the back end and how to translate it. So, one system might have a no. One system might have a 0. It could mean the same thing.
Right.
and those kinds of things. Again, this is a basic, very, very, very basic data model, but like you can deal with your sources here. These are your source fields. This is the percentage of them that actually have data, and you can make decisions on whether you're going to bring them over. This is kind of like your target system dynamic CRM, the account entity. We're going to put it in this field, what type of field it is, single line of text, and those kinds of things. But, driving this conversation in the early part of it, we used to do a lot of projects where we wouldn't invite a data person on until it was time to move data. We've since changed that philosophy. We try to get people like me in a conversation from the beginning so that we can talk about this exact very thing and do this basic analysis so that you don't end up with everybody moving everything from the source system to the target system, no matter what it was and how valuable it is, or if it's even used. So that
best practice is going to be to invite the data person to do analysis before you have that conversation and invite them to participate in the meeting so that they can explain what they found.
absolutely. We were missing that on a lot of our projects, and when we were doing smaller projects. This is we kind of forced our data team into a lot of the conversations just because of stuff like this. And of course, what you're talking about is the end result. You see the end result, 10 systems later, and you start seeing all these fields, and now you're trying to normalize the data, make sense out of it. It's a mess. The other thing that you mentioned there too is and we see a lot of this too, is on forms, it's a double-edged sword. You require a first name and last name. But what if you don't have their last name? They'll just type in something, Smith, 000-999. We will see a lot of phone numbers on records that are 99999 or 11111.
Yeah.
Because you force them to fill it out, on the time of creation. But it's a double-edged sword too, is how many people actually go back and correct it.
No, it never
No.
happens.
Exactly. So, that is a situation that I get to deal with the end results of that, but a lot of our BAs in the beginning, yeah, they have to make those kinds of discussions and conversations about, fields that are required and those kinds of things. I get in the middle of some of those, but not always.
So what we know as business analysts is we have to get the right people in the room. And so if we're working with data, we need the people that understand the data to have a voice in those conversations. We are down to the last 2 minutes. Do we have any last questions?
Not a question, but a request. Yeah, Cliff, can you please organize that presentation of Microsoft Copilot with one of your salespersons?
Yes, we'd love
Yeah,
to see it, Cliff.
I could
Would
see what
be
I could do. I actually have, I might actually have recordings. I attend a lot of the Microsoft seminars and I record them in the back end and I post them out onto our internal company site. Probably not supposed to do that, but they are general sales type seminars. So it's not like they're dealing with data and I'm not releasing
Okay.
anything that shouldn't be out there. But I might have one on Copilot or at least some links. I could see what I could do.
Okay. But if you
Getting
could
one
get a
of the
salesperson,
salespeople, yeah, Thea, I never even thought of that because
because
yeah,
if
our
you can get a
salespeople do their
salesperson,
stuff.
it looks like we've got several people that have questions about privacy and keeping the data secure. We would probably like to grill a salesperson. What they say,
So
they're
pick a
salespeople.
salesperson I don't really like. No.
Well, we grill nicely, but we do want to know the truth. So bring us somebody who really knows what they're talking about.
Yeah, let me see what I can do. But yeah, that sales honestly deals with that a lot because they do a lot of demos.
Mhm.
That was another thing I saw with Copilot is you have an application. We built data sets. One of the projects I worked on a couple of years ago was we built fake databases with data, and it looked like real data. So you get a lot of these presentations, and the data for a name might be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This actually looks like Jim Smith. It's not a real Jim Smith, but it looks like real data, but it's fake data. And we built a lot of that for different industries for Microsoft so that because I saw them do it with Copilot, is they actually typed in a command and said, okay, please create a bunch of dummy data. And that's the data set it would pull from. It would pull a bunch of account and contact type records, opportunity type records that were all fake, but and then import them into your data set so that you could do a demo and actually look like you had real data in it. So
They're brilliant.
yeah, so there was I have seen that recently, and they're probably, like I said, working on the data sets that we built for them a couple years ago
Okay.
for that very thing.
Okay, do warn them though that I'm going to have questions about data privacy and data masking. So I don't want to spring that on them without them being warned. Ladies and gentlemen, it has been wonderful to see y'all again. I've missed you over the holidays. We look forward to having a robust program that we present to you. If you have any requests or suggestions on topics that you want to hear more about, contact me through LinkedIn, and I'll be glad to try to arrange those. If you have someone that you think we should interview, send them to me or have me introduce them to me through LinkedIn, and I will see what I can do about getting that. We're going to go through a professional series and learn about some technologies for a little while, and then we might go back to going through practice study questions. If you're only interested in practice study questions, and we're not doing that right now, we do have the recordings. We went through the BABOK twice and went through practice study questions for every single chapter at least 2 times, both times. So you have 4 different meetings of practice study questions for every single chapter, except for solution validation. We went through that one like 6 times because it's hard. If you're studying for the CBAP, you have to go through every chapter in the BABOK. In the BABOK. But if you're not studying for the CBAP, if you're studying for one of the other tests on the BABOK, you do not have to go through every chapter. And if you don't know which ones you can skip, contact me and I'll be glad to give you the list. Okay, guys, see you next week. And we will be talking with Rohit, and he's going to talk about using data in Excel and just making a real quick and easy responsive data dashboard so you can show it to your executives and look good. See you then. Talk to you
I
later.
just want to say thank you.
Oh,
No
you're
problem.
so welcome.
And
I'm
guys,
camera shy,
in the
but this
chat,
was actually good, really good fun. Thank you.
yeah, in the
thank
chat,
you.
connect to us on LinkedIn. If you're not connected with
Yes.
me or Thea, get in our channels. You'll get notifications of when we're doing this and what we're doing and those kinds of things.
And we do post a lot of other things that are valuable. Cliff is a master marketer, and he will post, the Miami chapter is doing this, and you can join us here. And I post job postings all the time. So I'm happy to help. He's happy to help. Reach out through us to LinkedIn. Go check out Bob's website. If you haven't done it, it is full of great information. He always puts on good stuff, and there's always more. He's always working. I will see y'all next week. Talk
Thank
to you later.
you.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye.